Okay, it is 9 o'clock on Thursday, August 29th, 2024. Call this meeting to order. We're here to consider amending the Big Creek Herrick Park decision that we made. I believe it was in June that we made the last agreement, if I'm correct. And so, I don't know, Commissioner, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I can go first.
Go ahead.
One of my concerns, I went to Big Creek twice, and I did some measurements, and off the bridge was the center point, and we have plenty of room on the other side. I guess it would be the east side for access for the water truck to go through our right of way. We can get water there. Now the other side where the property was quiet title for Mr. Buell, that roadway that was either put in 3.5 years ago or longer. It appears, the public are saying it was longer. It doesn't touch any of Mr. Buell's property from what I saw. My biggest concern about taking that out would be access to the bridge. The bridge has been there since 1914, and it's a railroad bridge. And I'm afraid that we're going to need that access if we're going to repair the bridge. I mean, we'll need both ends access. So I would be more than happy to barricade it with set the blocks, the Jersey barriers to barricade that road off and just have public access down there. I don't see where it would benefit us if we took out that whole road. We've already spent $5,000 according to testimony prior to widen the road or do whatever. So I think we'd be wasting money. I mean, I think it would be easier to Jersey barrier it off and then leave public access, but that's my opinion.
Okay. Well, my opinion is we already have an agreement in place that says we will destroy the ramp, so we need to do something. Because the last time we voted on wanting to take out the ramp and just use the eastern access. So we need to do something. So I also went down and listened to the folks down there, and I heard them talking about the need for public access to the water. We do have the eastern side where people can drive. But rather than destroy the entire access on the western side, I approached Mr. Buell at his attorney's suggestion. He also was okay with the idea of foot traffic down through there. And the alternative that he has offered was that we simply take out the ramp and only leave a 2-foot wide footpath that would give foot access down there. To me, since we already have an agreement with him, which we have not abided by so far, I thought compromising with him would be the wiser strategy. And so I think we're close. You're talking about barricading the ramp, and I'm talking about turning it into a 2-foot wide trail, which is what Mr. Buell was willing to do. And I think we do have to negotiate with him because we already signed an agreement to take out the ramp at our June meeting. And I'm quoting June, but is that what you have, Mr. Prosecutor, in your notes? Was June?
So the last license agreement, which was negotiated by the parties, would have been the amended license agreement to use real property. My notes indicate that it was approved by the BOCC on around June 5th. And those are just my preliminary notes, so the BOCC's official record would be your most accurate place to determine the dates associated with that agreement. Within that agreement, there were various modifications that were made to the original license agreement, which my notes indicate, I believe, was approved on January 17th of this year. Within that license agreement, there was still the ability for the party to exercise its desire to utilize the opposite side of Big Creek and do away with the ramp access. When this body met about a month ago with the Public Works Director and the Public Works employee responsible in that area or likely to oversee any drawing of water in that area, the recommendation was to actually make the decision on which of the two options in the proposed amended license agreement was available to the county. Up until that point, the county had essentially two options to choose from under the terms of the license agreement. Just for purposes of context and to make sure the BOCC is all on the same page regarding the license agreement in the first place, it was never contested that the county could utilize its ramp to draw water from Big Creek. The primary issue that prompted the license agreement in the first place was a need to be able to have sufficient space to turn a truck around at the bottom of the ramp. So when we analyzed the need for the license agreement, the agreement came about because Public Works indicated that it would have no way of drawing water from Big Creek within its right-of-way, short of backing a truck down, which it believed was unsafe. And as such, if it drove the truck down in a safe manner, it would need sufficient space to turn around in order to bring the truck back out. Hence the need for a license agreement for that truck to go onto Buell's property at the base of Big Creek. So that was the reason for the original license agreement. As the discussions moved forward in the conversation, Buell had raised additional concerns with continued access by the public and had offered as a proposal an alternative route on the opposite side of Big Creek. And if the county chose to utilize that alternative route, instead of the license to use the route it's currently using with its own ramp, the county would need to stipulate to essentially do away with the ramp. And I'm summarizing and putting a lot of things into layman's terms as best I can. So when the BOCC met roughly a month ago, at that point in time, Public Works was making a formal request for the county to decide between those two options. Up until that point, those two options were both in the agreement, and the county had not officially declared which of those two options it would be moving forward with. So at the meeting earlier this month, the BOCC ultimately made a motion and approved the request of Public Works to go with option 2, which would involve the obliteration of the ramp essentially. And so I believe what the BOCC is considering today is whether or not it wants to revisit that decision from a month ago in light of alternative proposals that have now been extended by Mr. Buell's camp. Does that accurately summarize your understanding? Okay.
So we've made the decision to obliterate the ramp. Then we got more public input. That inspired me to go to Mr. Buell and say, is there any way we could keep part of the ramp so that we have public access down both sides of Big Creek, left and right? And that's what resulted in this amendment to the amendment, the second amendment.
Well, at the last hearing, we all looked at the possibility of the park, of it would be Big Creek Park,
Mm-hmm.
and the possibility that we own it,
Mm-hmm.
and really, in my mind, that I thought it was a for sure deal, but we don't even know if we own it. The dedication that was done by Schofield in 1965 says the Big Creek Park property was to go to the landowners for their enjoyment. I don't know how we got it, and I don't think we can just get property on tax deed, because if we did just get property on tax deed, then why weren't we able to get the property that Mr. Buell got through quiet title? Because there was no taxes paid on it. It's the same difference between the two. I don't understand why we need to destroy the road completely. It's on our property. We replaced the road on there. We spent money putting the road on there. And the problem is when that bridge goes, we're gonna have to have some kind of access down there. And if we destroy the only access we have down there, you know, it defeats the purpose. We wasted $5,000. Now, I didn't understand how all this looked until I went down there. You know, Public Works said that there was other trails that you can get down there. You know, during the testimony, I went down there and the trails are steep. So there was no extra trails. There wasn't a way that you can come around the other side. And I saw that we own that whole swath of 100 feet on the other side where that road is, that now that road is, you know, on our property, on that easement. So, you know, that would be public access all the way down to Big Creek. So I think the biggest part here is the problem that folks in Calder are having is this was the only access they had to the St. Joe River, not Big Creek. And that's what I've gathered. It's the only access to the St. Joe River between Calder and Marble Creek. And I know they lose that access through Mr. Buell's property that he purchased. But, I mean, we still have Big Creek.
Well, but Mr. Buell indicated to me that he was happy to have people still walk down that if it were a trail and access the river through that side. So that would leave us with both sides, the east side that you could drive on and the west side that you could walk down, and either way you could still access the trail. The thing is that we already have a signed agreement with Mr. Buell, so I feel we have to negotiate. If we're going to try and change our arrangement, we've got to negotiate with Mr. Buell on that because we already signed a license with him. And so that's why the amendment, I was looking for a compromise that guaranteed people access to both sides of the creek, but it was a compromise. I've heard you suggest cement barricading the road versus a gate, which was in our original license thing. I didn't bring that one up with him. I just brought up, could we put a trail in there so that people could still get down? It sounds like those two ideas are pretty similar.
Mr. Chair, if I may, just for purposes of context, the original license agreement, which was executed, and then the amendment, so we're talking the first amendment to the license agreement, both had contemplations of access down the ramp utilizing a gate, essentially, to ensure that there's not further vehicular traffic from the public that's utilizing the ramp, which was the primary concern. When Public Works brought its concerns back to this board, one of those concerns was that there just didn't seem to be sufficient space for a gate. It was contemplated that a gate would be used, but they didn't believe that they actually had sufficient space to place the gate. But these conversations started with the understanding that the ramp would continue to be the primary means of access for the county, and that a gate, whereas the conversation involved the possibility of barriers, would be used as an alternative for blockage. So that concept, just reminding you, that concept was actually the original concept that we started with.
It's a good point. It's a good point. Well, Susan, I don't know if you can speak to it or not, but would Mr. Buell be amenable to going back to the original, I'm losing track of which one, but of barricading or a gate?
Mr. Buell's amenable to look at any options that the board wishes to discuss with him. I can't tell you what his decision will be, but yes, he is amenable to working with the board.
Okay. Okay. So in your opinion, a gate or a barricade is
Just a barricade. I don't think the expense of a gate would be necessary. because basically we wouldn't need that access to get water because we have access on the other side. But the problem that, that bridge is going to have to be replaced. Because it's.
And we would only
it's-
have access to the east side.
Yep, and we just have public access, they can put the Jersey barriers at whatever width, so four-wheelers can't go down there. And that would allow public foot traffic to go down there, and and then if need be, if we have to do some work on the bridge, we have that access on that side and the other side. Because it is old.
Okay. So we already have an agreement in place. We've got to do, and we've had a vote to obliterate the ramp. So we need to do something to, and Tracy, feel free to jump in here. I keep forgetting you're standing by.
That's okay, I'm here. I'm listening.
Okay. So we need to do something. It sounds like Mr. Buell would be amenable to more discussion. Do you have anything on that, Mr. Buell?
I'm sorry.
The idea of discussing going back to blockading or gating the ramp and the access, that you have any comment on that?
And
You know,
blockading, not gating.
Get blockading.
Yeah, I would remind you that I was commissioned to meet with your people this spring and determine a location for the gate. Okay, that was as per Jessica and agreement with you folks. I did that, and it was Jessica and Brad that said once they looked at what would be the location and we met on the side, they determined that they did not want a gate there.
Right.
That was their choice, not ours.
Okay.
So at that point, Susan, we were going to put the gate in. We had bought the material. We were ready to put the gate in and close the road. So I'm going to defer to Susan because, Jack is her client. I only represent Jack to the point where Susan takes over. And she can speak to whether he would be agreeable to that or not. But I can tell you that last spring he was agreeable to it because of the agreement that Ben talks about that we've already signed,
Correct.
that we would gate the road and close it.
So I think we're just talking about maybe putting in permanent barricades instead of a gate and leaving a footpath instead of a four-wheeler trail.
And I did discuss that with Brad. I wish you were here because I don't want to speak for him. But when we talked about Jersey barriers, he was very concerned that anybody with a 3/4 ton pickup could hook onto those Jersey barriers and pull them out of the way. That's, and I'm not speaking for him, Jeff, but that's what he told me. And so he was more in that conversation I had with him, thinking of large boulders or large rocks other than the Jersey barrier, something that couldn't be removed by the public. Or the Coeur d'Alene paving truck. Oh, quit shaking your head.
Well,
I'm teasing you.
I still want, I want to know how this got through because
I'm sorry. Yeah.
is it
Yeah.
not public?
You'll have to wait.
Okay.
Wait till we call on public. Okay.
So Susan, I would defer to you to
The only
speak
thing
for
I
Jack.
would note is that Mr. Buell did buy the gate per the agreement, and he has not asked for reimbursement on that. He has authorized us to continue to work with the commissioners on a solution.
So what seems important to the public is that we maintain some sort of access there. I think we're agreed on that. Okay. What seems important to you is that we maintain the ramp for future use for bridge work.
That would be just for safety precautionary, that would be a good idea that we keep that instead of destroy it, because if we have to go work on it, we may have to put it back.
Okay. But you're thinking a barricade versus a gate.
Mm-hmm.
And what's your reasoning, or what's your thought process, if I can ask, but why the difference between the two?
The barricade is cheaper, and the gate apparently doesn't work in that spot. And then they were talking about people going in and cutting locks and destroying the signs, and so barricades would be more permanent, so that you couldn't access that just by foot traffic only.
Okay. I think we're both agreed that we want the public to be able to access it, but with foot traffic is and that seemed to be what Mr. Buell was amenable to when I talked to him. He did not want to block people from walking down there and accessing the river. So I guess now we come down to the how, and we need to negotiate with Mr. Buell a little on that because we already have a license with him. So we, all right. So what direction would the commission like to go on this? It sounds like we need to talk with Mr. Buell further to renegotiate this amendment or some other amendment that talks about whether a gate or a block is going to be acceptable to all parties.
Okay. I agree. I think we should, go through negotiations, and, like I said, a barricade's more permanent.
Okay.
And a gate would be an expense.
Well, he's already bought a gate, but
But the expense of upkeeping it and make
Upkeep.
sure, because roads department said that they would cut, be able to cut locks, and we'd have to check it all the time and replace signs. So that would be the barricades would probably be our better bet, because we wouldn't have to babysit it.
okay. Commissioner Cassidy, do you have anything to add?
I do not. I believe Mr. Buell's been pleasantly negotiating with us, and I would like to respect him. So I'd like to make sure we have a proper agreement amongst the both entities.
Right. I think that's our goal here, is to find the best way to represent the public and Mr. Buell. All right. So how do you want to proceed with negotiation? As far as if we're going to go ahead and negotiate with Mr. Buell about barricades or gates, etc.
Yeah, let's get into to have
Executive session.
negotiate with Mr. Buell and.
If you're asking for my opinion as legal counsel, I think probably the most efficient way to go about it is to probably designate one single commissioner to engage in conversations. I think you're going to want to have somebody on behalf of Public Works there as a representative, so that you can have their opinion in mind as you're engaging in those discussions. Whether or not Mr. Buell is the one conversing on his side personally, or whether or not he designates somebody like Mr. Mueller, who I know is oftentimes been employed by him in that capacity. Ultimately, that'll be up to him. I think certainly both sides revisiting this in light of additional public input that's been received since the last BOCC meeting. It sounds like is the direction that the BOCC is wanting to go at this point.
Mr.
I
Allen,
think, Dave, you've already...
Just I'm sorry, Tracy. I'd already called on Mrs. Weeks, and then I'll grab you.
Oh, okay. That's okay.
Mr. Allen, if they appoint a negotiating chairperson or a negotiating commissioner, do you have a problem with me being present without your presence?
I don't. I'll defer to my commissioner, whichever one's identified by the board as being the delegated representative, and I'm certainly there to answer any questions, whether I'm personally present or remotely. So,
Okay.
And that's just an ethical issue of commissioners. I just want to make sure Mr. Allen does not feel I'm going around his right to be the legal representative for the commissioners.
Understood. Commissioner Cassidy, I'm sorry I cut you off.
No, go ahead. I've been answered some questions
Okay.
already.
Okay. Mr. Mueller?
I believe that, in my opinion, that Jack would probably want his attorney there, Ben, or he probably won't sit down. And I think, David, in my opinion, since you and he have already sat down and crafted what we have here today as an agreement, that he would like to negotiate chairman to chairman, so to speak. And that's not Jeff slighting you at all. It's just that they have formed a rapport and a dialogue. And so, David, I think you and Susan could be present. I don't need to be present. But that would be a suggestion.
What do you think, Mr.
I'm
Jennings?
fine with that, I'll be okay with that.
Okay. Ms. Cassidy, any opinion?
I'm fine with the same idea.
Okay. So to make sure that we're clear on what we're discussing, then I would be negotiating on back to the original, or one of the original ideas of some kind of a permanent barricade on the road that allows foot traffic.
Allows foot traffic, and then, make sure that allows us, really we want to ensure that we have access to the bridge down below. That's my whole point. And with the public access, but without destroying the ramp, so that we could access the bridge if we had to.
Okay. All right. I think I have enough direction from the board on that then. Mr. Prosecutor, do we need a vote on something like that?
You've delegated the authority. You're not actually taking any action at this point, so it's up to
Just
you.
negotiating and bringing it back to the board. So I'll just do that and bring it back to the board. Okay. Anything further from you, Commissioner Cassidy?
No.
Anything further before I go to public comment?
No.
Okay, so is it clear to the public what we're talking about then? We're going to go and negotiate with Mr. Buell about our previous agreement with him to try and secure access for foot traffic down the bank. So I'll just start and go around the room for public comment. If you have something you want to say, and try and keep it to 2 minutes and polite, and I'll just start here and go all the way around and come back to you, Mr. Mueller.
My name is Tanya Galinsky. I have ownership of Lot 7 at this subdivision. My concern would be if you are only having vehicle access through the east side, at certain times of the year that east side floods. How is that going to be available for vehicle access? For the county vehicles?
Yeah, it would depend if the county vehicle needed to access that for. Apparently, Public Works is telling me they may or may not need to use that spot for water anyway. So, but good point.
My other question would be, in visiting with a gentleman when we were up at Big Creek last week, he indicated that he's a search and rescue individual, and he would have to go in at Marble Creek or Calder, and that's quite a distance to have the whole Joe blocked off. Excuse me.
Okay. Anything else? Okay.
That's my concern.
Sir.
Yeah, myself, I was at the last, I was out at the bridge when we met. That's where I met you. That same day that we were out there a few hours earlier, 2 individuals back down that road to the water and put their rafts in and then pulled the cars back out and parked out on the road. And this has been going on forever where the public has had access to this. In talking on the bridge, there's people that are second, third generations, fourth generations, and they've all used this property down there. And in a sense, I don't know, we call it a quiet title, but I don't understand. A couple of years ago, we were here where all the commissioners absolutely were in agreement that nothing was going to go in on that west side over there. And somehow, without anybody hearing about it, in a sense, all I hear here is Jack owns not this Jack, but Jack owns the property. And without any of us being notified whatsoever that this was going on again, quiet title, I guess. I don't understand it, but it just seems like the people that were at that meeting 2 years ago should have been notified that this agreement that the commissioners had was all of a sudden destroyed. And we're just hearing about it now, basically. And so I don't understand it, but I go back to, you mentioned, if you can go and do quiet title on any place that isn't paying taxes, I mean, my goodness, boy, I should get out there and start doing quiet titles all over the place, And I was talking to a gentleman on the bridge, and he said that Jack's, I think it was his uncle or something, was an attorney. And he's been doing this for years and years and years and years. And I think a lot of this got passed down to Jack, to the way it was operating. And I'm just really kind of heartbroken that the 100+ people that were at that meeting a couple of years ago weren't all notified that this is opened up again. I'll leave it at that.
This week's any comment?
No, I was just here to facilitate negotiations.
Appreciate it. Any comment? I'm sure. Patrice, any comment?
I have a lot, but I'll really Reader's Digest it. There's been many tactics used on this Big Creek deal. 11/24/21, when we were here before for the vacation that was denied, it was said that Buell acquired the property at Big Creek through a mysterious process called accretion. Thank goodness the commissioners saw through this, and at that time they talked about researching that ownership because they didn't understand what this accretion was. And then on January 16th of this year, there was a meeting titled Herrick Park License Agreement, which guaranteed to allow public traffic at said property. But apparently Buell found some long-lost relative of Schofield and bought the property, and he regularly said he owned their accretion. So it just seems like there's not a lot of truth in this whole thing. The last meeting, July 31st, was the consideration and discussion of Herrick Park Agreement, which none of us knew it was actually not Herrick Park. It was the Big Creek St. Joe access. The only reason we saw it is I always scanned the agendas, and I said, I'm going to just take a look at this. Thank God I did, or the bridge would be gone right now, or the ramp. Public Works person, I time-stamped each thing that was said that was not true. It was testimony. I don't know if you can lie at a commissioner's meeting and just get away with it. 3 minutes, 32 seconds. Jessica states the ramp is very, very steep. It's not safe and too narrow to accommodate trucks. It gets better. At 12:36, Tim Mueller stated, first of all, the ramp has only been there for 3 years. Not like it's been in established use for 10, 20, 30 years. And that, quote, the public had always walked down the east side until 3 years ago when Public Works put that ramp in, which has created an enormous influx of trespassers using Buell's property. This is direct quotes from Mr. Mueller. He also stated that at 18 minutes, 11 seconds, that trespassing problem was created by the county when you built that ramp 3 years ago. And he said that, and Steve Circle at 21:09, we really want to eliminate the ramp to keep out the trespassers. 24:07, Mueller stated coming from the west side is a 70 to 80 degree slope. And close the west side and turn everything back to normal. And I could go on and on ad nauseum. But do you see a pattern here, a pattern of deceit, continually giving false testimony at a Board of Commissioners hearing? In my opinion, how can the commissioners believe anything that these people testify to? And any testimony in the future from these people, Circle, Mueller, Stutzky, how can you believe what they say? Kudos to the commissioners who saw through the tactics, put boots on the ground, and visited the site themselves. So I thank you guys for going and seeing that everything you were showed at that July 31st meeting wasn't true. And I hope you just take that into consideration with further testimony from those people.
All right. Thank you. Lori?
Fiscally, we're put 5,000 to upgrade the road that was previously there, from my understanding. So now we're thinking about paying to take it out, and then we'd have to eventually, at some point, pay to put back it to fix a road, to fix a bridge. Taking out the ramp for foot traffic, it would still be considered just foot traffic if you put a barrier, right? We fiscally wouldn't have to spend any money taking out a ramp to 2 feet wide when it's, just leave it there. So to me, I'm thinking money-wise that doesn't make sense to do that. If you choose to put a gate, then how does foot traffic get around a gate? Because everybody is in agreement that we want foot traffic, at least foot traffic. A gate would not work because how do you get around a gate? So Jersey barriers, you could put them and leave them enough space to walk through with their tubes or whatever. So I'm just thinking of money-wise, it would be more beneficial to do that than to spend the money to tear out a road, to essentially have to redo the road.
Yeah, I think we're with you on that.
So that was my key takes on it.
Mr. Avery?
It was mentioned something about search and rescue getting to the river. I would presume he's wanting to get there with some kind of a motorized vehicle, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
I mean, a motorized boat of some sort.
Would
Probably.
have to be on the east side.
Yeah. Okay. So he would come in from the east side and then go down.
If we did this, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Another thing, there's been talk about the stream itself, Big Creek, and who owns it or whatever. And I mean, that's always kind of an issue. But my own experience, I have 3 pieces of land that have a stream similar to that on it. The title report, it says in there, they will not guarantee the land between the ordinary high water mark. That's a title report that they say that on all of them. So that's kind of no man's land, I guess you would say. The other thing, it was mentioned that there wasn't room for the water truck to turn around, or it was too steep. Looks like there's room to turn around there. I mean, it's kind of tight, I would agree, before you get out on Jack's land, but it looked like there was. As far as too steep, water truck's only going to be backing down there, going down there, I would presume, in the summertime. You know, so the grade of that is probably 14%, 15%. That's probably the grade. So, I don't know who didn't think a water truck couldn't get down there and back out.
Okay. Thank you.
I agree with Joe. I was with him when we walked down there. I've been on equipment for 50 years off and on, and that's ridiculous to say you can't go down there and come back out with a water truck. And you can't back down it, then I wouldn't have you working for me on the county. And the next thing is I don't even know why we're here. So every time somebody comes off of a county right of way and trespasses to somebody's yard, somebody's property, am I gonna come to you guys and say, what are you gonna do to stop it? You gonna put barriers up? Because I got people come off of Tomsky Avenue into my shop yard. Can you put a gate up for me? This isn't our issue. Jack needs to put up a no trespassing sign on his property and prosecute whoever trespasses. This is public land we're talking about, which I'll get into about that too. It irritates me that we had this meeting and you allowed Mr. Mueller and Mrs. Weeks to speak to you during the meeting, but you didn't let the public talk about it. This is public access. This is our property. Like I said, I can't figure out why we're even fooling with this. Put a no trespassing sign up. Jack can put a no trespassing sign up just like I would. And if they keep trespassing, you call the cops. That's the way you do it. This isn't our issue. I think that's it. Oh, last thing. And I don't agree with Mr. Allen that if Mrs. Weeks is with you
and Jack negotiating that we don't have legal representation there. I think that's baloney. If there's legal there on one side, there needs to be legal there on both sides. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir?
Yeah, my name's Todd Kaufman. We have property right there in Herrick, right along Big Creek. We use this boat access all the time, frequently. My father-in-law, who's almost 80, runs his drift boat down there and puts it in down that ramp. That's the only boat ramp on the east side between Marble Creek and Calder. So you're 10, 12 miles between. So you're going up 4 or 5 or down 4 or 5 on gravel, dusty roads to put your boat in or go rafting, jet boat, whatever. 2 years ago, we were told this was going to stay open. It's like, okay, great. We're going to leave the access open because there's 200 foot that the county has for the road easement, correct? From center line, 100 foot each way.
100 foot each way.
That involves this area of the boat ramp. However, the public wants to use it, that's a 200 foot going between that road. And this boat ramp going there, or this, whatever you guys want to call it, is a boat ramp, is what we've been using it for. We've been putting boats in there for years, not just walking traffic. So you're going to tell people you can walk down through there, great. But we've had a place there for 13 years. I don't know what the complaint is. There's another agenda, and I don't even know what it is. What is the complaint? There's not garbage down there. Very rarely I drive down through there, low water. I can cut through the whole thing. I've been 13 years going back and forth through there. There's no notice that any of us as close property owners, I know you have to notice within 300 feet. I don't know if it goes, but I feel like this whole thing that you're closing this down was all backdoored, closed doors. Public didn't know about it. If you put a gate up there, there's not going to be a room because it's narrow. By the time you put a gate, there won't be room to even walk around it. You're going to be shutting down every access unless the easement on the east side that you're talking about, which is still in that 200 foot, right? Do we have the access to use that to put boats in? I think it's shallower. I don't know that you could do it. It's much easier going in on the west side, even though it's a little bit of a hassle. But you can back a trailer all the way down that ramp. It's not that steep that you can't. But I think that if there's any negotiations, it needs to be done in a public setting. I don't believe that one commissioner and a lawyer should go be able to negotiate this. You guys close this off without any of us knowing about it, is what happened.
Okay.
I'm Craig Kozad. I have property right on Big Creek there. Had it for 13 years. I've probably launched a boat there 50 times. I backed up a full-size pickup, a 24-foot boat down in there. I pulled out of there from rafting down. I jet boated there. I drift boated out of there. It's like Todd said, it's the closest boat ramp within 10 miles, 4 miles up, 5 miles either way. So I've been going up to Big Creek for over 40 years as a kid. Going up there, it's been a big part of my life. That's why I chose to buy up there and still be a part of my life. So, and that access has been there ever since we've owned the property, since 2012. We've used it ever since we bought that property. So, just like to see it stay. To your point of barriers, if that's where it gets to, I'd rather see boulders than concrete in the woods. That's all I have to say.
Now, when you said you put the boat in, did you put it in Big Creek or did you put it in St. Joe?
I actually, it's kind of at the confluence right there. You just back in where it's Big Creek. Big Creek.
It's at high water.
In the high water, in the springs when we're doing it.
Yeah.
Absolutely high water. You can put a 24-foot jet boat in there. We've done it many times.
Yeah.
And so we're driving a lot of dusty gravel road, not only dusting out our stuff, but dusting out all your neighbors that are homeowners along there and campers and stuff to go up and down, to go back down to Calder. And really to put that big of a boat in at Marble Creek, it's really shallow, even in the high water. Yeah. It's hard to get.
You got to back your whole truck and
you can't get off the trailer.
The water at Marble Creek, so the only place you can put it would be
Calder. Yeah. But we've jet boated to Avery lots of times. So losing access there is going to be a big deal.
Okay. Mr. Mueller?
I just wanted to address Jeff's concerns in the pending negotiation that you're going to have with Jack about maintaining the bridge, Jeff. I would suggest that when you talk to Jack, because this has come up before and he's amenable to it, that you ask for an easement also for repair and maintenance of the bridge on the east side. Okay? That to put machinery down there, contrary to what the fellows think, you can't turn lowboys and machinery around down on either side unless you get onto Jack's property. So I would suggest that it's going to be a lot easier to repair the bridge, Jeff, from the east side because it's flat, it's level, than it would from the west side, and that you pursue an easement from Jack to do that in your negotiations with him over closing the ramp.
No little boy would ever drive down there. You would unload on the road.
Oh, sorry, we already had your shot.
Well, let's think it through. I mean,
I'm sorry though, but I got to take turns.
yeah.
Okay. All right. I've got public comment. Any comments from you, Commissioner?
No.
Any comments from you, Commissioner Cassidy? And apparently we had lost Commissioner Cassidy. Okay. So we've heard from everybody. What would the next steps would be is some discussion, negotiation, and then another public meeting where all of that will be discussed in a public setting. So with that, we are adjourned.